Hello, and welcome to another of our Expert Insight podcasts. And I've got with me today Doug Ticus and Kris Oxtal, with whom we've spoken before to talk about the self-storage sector as at mid-year 2024. Doug, let me turn to you first. I got the sense that the self-storage sector is experiencing not negativity, but a muted uh, uh, time at the moment. Would you like to comment on that?
I think that's a good point. I would say over the past 12 months or so, maybe a little longer, we've started to see a slow decrease in tenant demand as there aren't as many home sales. We've talked about that before. There's a lot of supply in the market that is also impacting some markets. Now, that's very specific to your metro area, with some areas that have seen overbuilding probably a little bit on the decline, whereas some that haven't seen less building may be seeing increases still, slight increases. But the general sentiment is that the market is slowing down and there's pressure on rental rates.
Yeah, so rent and occupancy are what we would call muted.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
Okay, but one good piece of news I picked up from the report is that the supply overhang might well abate as soon as the year end this year.
Yeah, Steve. Construction starts have slowed a lot, obviously, with pressure on rents and occupancies combined with where interest rates are at. It's tough to start a new deal in this environment, and you don't know where exactly you're going to stabilize. So that's allowing some of the oversupplied markets to work through that inventory, and should be good in the next 12 months as that supply is absorbed.
Especially as, am I right to say that the supply pipeline originated in the good times a year or two ago?
Yes, yeah, cheap capital and high rents and high growth. Everyone wanted to start a self-storage
Yeah,
facility and build it, and it was easy to do so. But now we got to work through that supply.
sure, sure. And you mentioned that operators are turning to high-tech solutions, including sustainability measures like auto climate control to reduce operating costs. Can you give us a few insights on that?
Yeah, that's something that is really pinching the bottom line in addition to rents is the elevated operating costs. And where controllable, unlike insurance or taxes, when the operator has the ability to implement new practices, new technology, they're taking advantage of it. And we really see this as the demand on the owner and operator side, as opposed to tenants and customers wanting these new tech options in the facilities, because that drops right to the bottom line. We're seeing a lot of solar being added on to facilities. That really helps as a three-pronged approach. You've got savings on operating costs. You've got savings on the abatements that you can receive from municipalities for energy efficiency. And then you can also get loan programs that will help out to carry some of the initial costs there.
Sure. Yeah. Let me turn to acquisitions. I noticed from the report that activity is down a little bit at the moment. Presumably that's as a result of the high cost of capital.
Yes, Steve. Obviously it's still tough to pencil a deal. There's been a couple larger deals. Harrison Street closed a $200 million acquisition recently. That was big news. But there's not a lot of those deals. There's a couple other portfolios getting ready to be taken out to market, but in hopes that the Fed obviously cut rates 50 basis points, which is a start. I think there's a long way to go there, but hopefully some deals will cross the finish line towards the end of the year.
Yeah, sure. And another interesting bit of the report, I'm always interested to see the guidance published by the REITs. And to what extent do you think the REITs are confronting and acknowledging some headwinds in the sector?
Yeah, they've over the past, call it 6 months, have definitely ratcheted those projections down. I think 1Q to 2Q less so. There was a big move from year end 23 into 24. And that's coming from both sides. That's coming from the top line income side that we talked about earlier, where there is pressure on rents and occupancy, but it's also happening from the expense side. We talked about controllable expenses where operators are trying to be more efficient that way, but you can't do anything about rising insurance costs and taxes and some of the other payroll costs. So those are definitely hitting the bottom line, and most of the REITs are projecting higher expenses, lower rents, which is putting strain on the bottom line. And we see that, you know, moderating some after the supply issues hit and as inflation comes into a more normalized range.
Yeah, I think it's always good for guidance to convey transparency from the investor's point of view. And finally, this is always our theme to end with, what about the future in terms of midterm and longer term, perhaps?
Yeah, I think, short term, there's definitely some headwinds as we talked about today. Longer term, the self-storage sectors continues to perform very well overall. And there's a lot of capital that's still coming in this space. There's a lot of capital that's been raised that's sitting on the sidelines waiting for investment rates to come down. I think the difference is, right now in a period where rental rates are decreasing, expenses are increasing, you really have to be an operator and know what you're doing in the space. And, that's why, the big public REITs and some of the larger private operators are doing really well. But you really have to know how to operate in this environment as well.
Yeah, especially in the near term, I think that's right, Kris. The folks with the large swaths of data, operating efficiencies are going to be able to outperform those that are new entrants to the market. But I think over the long haul, even those new entrants realize there's a great opportunity. So as they get up to speed, I would expect them to catch up.
Yeah, well, it's good to end on a positive note, and everything bodes well for at least the midterm. So thanks both for coming in and talking about this.
Great. Thanks, Steve. Appreciate the time.
Thanks, Steve.